In this video, I want to introduce you to the concept of scope. Scope is the region or context in which a variable or name is defined and can be accessed. It determines how other program portions view a variable and how long that variable can exist in memory. Understanding how scope works is important to accessing variables, avoiding naming conflicts, and knowing the lifetime of a variable. Variables created inside loops or conditionals are in the scope of the function or class where that loop or conditional is, or if they are now not in a function or class, they are in the global scope. Scope precedence means that Python looks for names in the order of local scope, enclosing scope, global scope, and finally built-in scope. The innermost scope always takes precedence if a name is defined in multiple scopes. The local scope is the innermost scope in Python's variable scoping rules. When a function is called, a new local scope is created for that function, and any variables defined within that function become local to that scope. When the function returns, the local scope is destroyed and the local variables cease to exist. For enclosing scope, this is going to be a little bit of a mouthful, but bear with me. The enclosing scope refers to the scope of an enclosing function within which a nested function is defined. When a function is defined inside of another function, the inner function scope is nested within the scope of the outer function, making the outer function's variables available to the inner function. The enclosing scope allows the inner function to enclose or capture variables from its containing function even after the outer function has returned. The global scope refers to the top-level scope of a Python script or module. Variables and functions defined at the top level of a script or module are in the global scope and can be accessed from anywhere within that script or module. The global scope is outside of any function or class, making global variables accessible throughout the entire code base. Global variables are created when values are assigned to them, and they will persist until the script or module execution ends. The built-in scope refers to the scope that contains all the built-in functions, classes, and objects provided by Python's standard library. These built-in elements, such as print, length, list, etc., are always available for use without the need for importing any module. The built-in scope is the widest scope and is automatically available in any Python script or module without any additional setup. It acts as a repository of standard functionalities that come with Python, making them readily accessible from any part of the code. And on the right side of the screen over here, I do have some examples, but when it comes to scope, because it's such a tricky concept to wrap your head around, I think it would be better to actually see them in action. So in the next video, I will show how to access different elements in different scopes.